Hello, Internet. I'm Matt.
And I'm Monster Punter.
And this is Parallax Scrolling, where we give you our perspective on the video games and the news that surrounds them. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Can't complain.
Good. Have time to play anything this week?
I was playing Dungeon Defenders with my friends the other day, and I've been playing more Battletech 2018, much to the neglect of Elden Ring. I have not played that in a week. I'm getting close to beating it, and I should beat it, but I haven't.
Well, yeah. It's worth... I think it's worth at least beating. You know.
Yeah, I just have been in the mood to try a different type of game lately, and...
Oh, yeah.
Battletech 2018 is a very strategic game compared to Elden Ring, and especially Dungeon Defenders, which, you know, it's a really fun game, Dungeon Defenders.
Yeah.
If you like tower defense games at all, definitely check out Dungeon Defenders.
I've been playing various Super Metroid hacks throughout the week, just when I had a little time, because games aren't very, time heavy. I guess there's not a big investment required of them. But I did pick up Axiom Verge 2, came out on PC on the 11th, and it had a rough start just because the first day we had issue with game crashing and patches and whatnot, but it was almost immediate fix. Game runs great, very interested in playing more, just gotta have the time to do it. But yeah.
Yet another Metroidvania. So,
well,
if you want to come to the expert on Metroidvanias, it's the guy who's sitting next to me here.
All right, we do have some news we want to cover. Thank you for everybody who listened last week. It was kind of a nice departure from last week.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think we should definitely do some more top 10s.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
And we can talk maybe at some point more in depth about the ones who didn't make the list, because just because it didn't make the list doesn't mean there aren't other fantastic JRPGs out there that are worthy of your time. And
we just didn't like them.
I liked them. What are you talking about?
They're not your top 10s.
That didn't make my top 10 doesn't mean I didn't like the game.
Well, no, but didn't make your top 10s.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay, well. Either way.
That and a lot of the games we didn't discuss, a lot of series we didn't discuss, we didn't beat those games. So that's another reason.
And there's some that are coming out this year. For the first time in a long time, I'm thinking about getting the Super Deluxe Collector's Edition of a video game, which I swore I'd never do anymore. But Valkyrie Elysium coming out, I'm a huge fan, and I was looking at that and I'm thinking maybe I'll do it. But $250 is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, but that's only in Japan right now, right?
It's where I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to do that over here.
Yeah.
But that, on top of it, it comes with a digital code for Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. So you get another game on top of it.
Which is the PSP remake of the original PlayStation 1 game, which is amazing. And had some different endings depending on how you played. And to get the true ending was actually kind of tough. Really good game.
Well, I mean, the original game was too. Like, you had to have, depending on how you played and what you did or didn't do, it actually affected the ending, so.
Yeah. And speaking of other games that were really good, I picked up the two brawlers I mentioned in an earlier episode of the podcast. I picked up Final Vendetta.
Yep.
And I picked up Fight and Rage as well.
Which, wow.
So when I bought those two, I bought Final Vendetta first because I had heard a lot of good things about it, and the gameplay and everything that I watched of it looked really good. And the game is really good. It's basically modern age Final Fight, and it looks like it can run on a Neo Geo, which is actually really cool in my opinion. And it had the animations on the characters and everything are very smooth for a 2D game. Lots of care and time went into it, and I can tell. And they did a fantastic job. I probably would at least give it an 8.5 out of 10, but I haven't played through it completely yet, so I'll reserve judgment. But the one that surprised me that I liked more was the one I just bought on a whim. You were there when I bought it. I knew I was buying Final Vendetta when we got together with our other friend.
Yep.
And I was like, I put this one on my wish list too. Hell with it, I'll pick it up. And turns out it was the better brawler in my opinion. That's Fight and Rage.
Yeah.
Oh man, that game. Let's just say I was amazed when we beat the game. And then it showed us an ending screen, and we found out that we had only unlocked one of like around 50 endings for the game.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's a lot of endings for a brawler. I have not seen that many endings in a brawler since Guardian Heroes.
Yeah.
And Guardian Heroes is hands down my favorite brawler of all time. Which, to call it a brawler, I guess it is accurate, but there's so much in that game too. Guardian Heroes is amazing. So
but it had a leveling system. That's what made it a little different.
Yeah.
It was a brawler RPG. It was kind of...
Yeah.
I can't think of that. I can't think of another one like that.
And even Fight and Rage doesn't have a leveling system, but the depth of the combos and everything you can do in it is really, really impressive.
Yep.
The story that we had along the way was a little light, but it was a great time.
Yep.
Great time.
I definitely agree. So, we have some interesting stories this week. I don't know if we have a lot. We definitely don't have as much material as we did last week because we could go on and on and on about our top 10 JRPGs, but we do have some interesting stories. I got a bunch. I know you got a couple. Which one do you want to address first?
Well, an article came out on Kotaku that I really think is intriguing for me, especially given the profession I work. And that's calculating a game's value from its price and length. And I think this could be a little bit of satire in this piece too, because of the way that they talk. But they talk about distilling a game's value into an equation and using that equation to determine if a game is really worth your time or how good it actually is.
Do they explain exactly?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
They do. They take the game's length divided by the sales price multiplied by the number of developers working on it. So, for instance, if you have a $70 game that is 1 hour long and had one developer, you get, I guess in this case, a 70 rating, which actually busts their calculation entirely based on everything else I've seen.
Yeah.
Because they're assuming that you're going to have more than one developer on a $70 game. But it's interesting because a lot of AAA games that you play nowadays have hundreds of people making it. And when you pay $60, $70 for a game, when you think of all the man hours that go into that product, to a degree, it's amazing that these games are, the price the way they do. But games are a lot bigger than they used to be. If this was the early 21st century, actually, if it was like 2002, 2003, or even further back in the 90s when gaming was more niche, you couldn't sell as many. But then again, game development wasn't as complicated. So it didn't take as long to make a game. It didn't take as many people to make a game. So even at $50 for the price at that time, you could still make a lot of money if you sold 1 or 2 million games. Nowadays, for AAA developers, if you sell 1 or 2 million and you have a staff of 200 to 300 people making that game, you're not really, the chances of you making your money back on it are a lot less, and the chances of another one being made are low. That's why you see the big pivot toward free-to-play models and live service games. Everybody's doing live service, right? Everybody wants to be that next League of Legends where the game just prints money.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I know I'm getting a little bit off on a tangent here, but I still think that when you try to distill the worth of a game down to an equation, it doesn't really take into all the intangible things that happen in the game. Well, so if I bought a brand new AAA game, it was only 6 hours long. What was the quality of my gameplay experience during that 6 hours, right?
Yeah.
If I had a fantastic 6-hour campaign, it's still short in my opinion, but at least it was really good while it lasted, and maybe I'll play it again.
Well, that's what when you were kind of explaining the formula, I was like, well, but they're not factoring in a person's enjoyment. I think that has a lot to do with it too, because I've played some $70 games that were garbage.
Sure.
I've had and that made me feel like I wasted my money, and then I've had games where I spent like maybe $20 on it, and I had an amazing time. And even that, like, how to which one I want to bring up here? Yeah, okay, I'll bring up this one. Terraria, survival, 2D survival game. Very combat heavy, very wacky and goofy. I have over, and keep in mind, I've had this game for at least a decade. I have about 1,000 hours in it.
Mm-hmm.
I paid $3 because it was on sale.
I never played Terraria, but does that one have paid DLC?
No.
It's always been free?
Yes. So it's that I think a person's enjoyment needs to factor into the price to a point, because it's also a matter of because I think we're talking, or at least I am talking about reselling. So if you're going to try to resell a game, if somebody wants that game, your enjoyment of the game should, I think, have some factor on that.
Wasn't that sort of goes into game length to a certain degree, but everybody plays games differently. So
right.
you have $1,000 in Terraria, but that by playing 1,000 hours, obviously you enjoyed the hell out of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the formula does capture it to a certain degree. For me, Monster Hunter, has been one that's taken lots and lots of hours, and and this is excluding MMOs. I'm not including any MMOs in this situation because the formula for this does not really apply very well to MMO.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, to online only games, I think it's kind of hard to.
Or rather, subscription-based games.
Yeah.
And free-to-play games.
Yeah.
But for me, Monster Hunter, I played Monster Hunter Freedom 2 on the PSP circa 2007 to hell and back. We would get together with 3-4 other people and just play that game all out the whole weekend, basically. And then when the expansion came out, Unite, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, which was the biggest Monster Hunter game up to that point, I dumped another 800 hours into that. I think that those two games, myself, I probably put in, and this is not an exaggeration, probably close to $2,000. Now, as I've gotten older and I don't have as much time, I enjoyed Monster Hunter World immensely.
Yeah.
But I have roughly 600 hours in that one.
I don't know if I have that much. I haven't looked at the clock in a while. I'll have to look back at it, see what it says. But so I think it's an interesting article. I think that I don't know if the formula's it's not 100% for every game out there, but it's still interesting to think about, and might affect some purchases in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, and again, some of the way that they talk in this, I think it's a little bit satire-y.
It probably is.
I don't want to take it very, very seriously, but I think the discussion around it is extremely fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of purchases, there's a segue. This week, do you know who AppLovin is?
I am not familiar with AppLovin.
I'm not fully aware of who they are either, but they are a mobile development company. Like, they make the game engines and stuff.
That's why you don't know much about them, or we both don't know much about them.
Yeah, we're not really mobile gamers.
We're not mobile gamers, but...
But what's happening this week is very interesting. They put in a bid to buy Unity for $17.5 billion. That's with a B. And just recently, I should explain, they put that bid in because they were trying to outbid their rival competitor, ironSource.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, obviously, if you get the Unity engine on a phone, that might affect your business sales or your profits and whatnot. Well, just recently, within like the last few hours or so, Unity rejected the bid.
I think that's a good call.
I think it's a great call. I think that's smart. Unity can.
So AppLovin is supposed to be. I think isn't it? I don't know much about them, but
right.
If they make the engine for people to make mobile games with, I mean, yeah, they're in the same area. I think that acquisition would make sense for them in a sense, because then they can get into the console space and the PC space a little bit more. Mobile gaming's so huge. I think mobile gaming is bigger than console and PC gaming put together. It's amazing, because when you think about mobile gaming in general, you think about everybody has a phone in their pocket nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And that's a potential person to play your game. And
everybody has radiation in their pocket.
This is true. Regulated radiation.
Regulated.
Yeah, it doesn't make it any better.
Regulated radiation. That sounds like an underground garage band or something.
I don't know. If regulated radiation gets us to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, then I'm
all the better. Just
There
get us
you go.
closer to Skynet, please. That's all we want. I know, we're just jumping around to this point. But yeah, no, the whole reason they did it is because Unity had announced a merger plan with ironSource. And so AppLovin was like, oh yeah, well, you're going to do how much money? Well, we're going to quadruple it because we want to acquire you, because we don't want our competitor to have you. That's like with the whole I haven't even heard any news recently about it, but the whole Microsoft Activision acquisition or attempt acquisition.
Well, this is
it's I would say, but it's like Sony coming out of the woodwork going like, oh well, they're giving you how much? Well, we'll double it. It's like, that's just weird. Like, we announced to the world that we're going to make this purchase, and you come out of nowhere and say, oh yeah, well we're going to spend more money on you. That just sounds desperate.
Well, I mean, they apparently value the company more than the other one, and they view the competing company buying Unity as a threat to their company. So, yeah, I think it would make sense for them to do it. But keep in mind, Unity is not used in a ton of games on console and PC. The big middleware, which is what Unity is, the biggest middleware around is Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine's used in so many games that are made nowadays, that even if they buy Unity to try to get into the console space, what are you going to do? And then let's not forget that the CEO of Unity wanted to put ads and other things like that in his game, from the article we read a bit ago, like microtransactions and things like that. So, which honestly, if you're a mobile developer like these people are, that's what you're doing anyway already, right? So maybe that's why they viewed it as a strategic acquisition. But
maybe, possibly.
We'll see what happens with Unity. I don't want to see a world where Unreal Engine is the only middleware really available, because the only people that are truly able to make middleware nowadays is, other than someone like Epic or Unity or There's a couple others that I can't remember off the top of my head. Is someone like Capcom. Capcom has the RE engine, and Capcom's using that RE engine in everything they do pretty much now.
Yeah.
And while RE engine has its quirks, it's a really fine engine.
Yeah.
And they debuted it with the release of Resident Evil 7, and it's now, and it runs on, Resident Evil 8 came out, and it runs on tons of different hardware, right? They used it for Monster Hunter Rise.
Okay.
On the Switch. And that game looks really good on the Switch.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, for a Switch game, probably the best graphics I've seen on Switch.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So it was just a brief story. Kind of wanted to get an update on it because we talked about the Unity CEO before. And so it was just like, oh, we're following up on this because now somebody's trying to buy them, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. It'll be interesting to see if they make a bid that's appealing to Unity or not. We'll see. Speaking of buying video games, see, another segue. See, it's all about first video game companies are getting bought, now video game.
You realize it's not a segue when you have to explain that it's a segue.
I'm explaining to you because you probably didn't get it. That's why I was.
I know what a segue is.
Please don't tell me it's that thing you ride around on. I will slap you.
Well, okay, fine.
Yeah, you were gonna. I was gonna. Yeah, you were gonna get there. I know.
Go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They see me rolling.
Okay. Hey, we will get copyright strike. Calm it down. All right. So this is just one article. This has been like a general article the past week, talking about the video game recession. Developers are coming out saying, "Hey, yeah, things are bad right now. People aren't buying as many video games as they did last year." I just kind of wanted to address that point. Didn't want to argue too much with these people about their article, but yeah, of course people played video games a lot last year. We were in a pandemic. Still, I mean, people were still recovering from 2020. People were afraid to leave their homes. They needed something to do, so they bought video games.
Video games surged so much during the pandemic because when you're stuck inside your home, what are you going to do? I mean, you can read some books, which I'm sure people did.
Yep. Watch some movies. Watch movies, TV. Yep.
And play video games. All right. You're not seeing anybody, so your options are limited. Mm-hmm. It's like it was like a 1.5+ years long rainy day.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. But yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of the articles are talking about like, yeah, everyone's seeing a dip in the recession since last month. Yeah, because it's summer and people want to be outside.
I think the bigger overarching thing going on here right now is with the pandemic largely being over.
Yeah,
there are things competing for people's money that weren't during that time. And so people are going to opt to do those things. Some people will have taken this 1 to 2 years and they say, you know what, I'm going outside. I'm spending as much time outside as I can because I love the outdoors.
It's a severe case of cabin fever.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be people who were, they're it's not like these people's hobbies all of a sudden just packed up and left and never to come back, right? If they liked going out and camping before the pandemic,
they're going to go do it again now.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because the way people have been writing some of the articles, it's like the video game developers are freaking out and panicking. And it's like, no, this actually should be expected. Like, yeah, the money's going to dip back down. We're not rolling in it like we were last year, but that's because things are going slowly and maybe not permanently, but they're getting somewhat back to a normal. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to stop selling video games. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to shut your doors. So it's just one of those stories or just to continue the point, it's just one of those articles that people have been writing that I'm like, why? Everybody knows the answer. It's just because it's a change in the season, a change in time.
Here's another thing about it, right?
Yeah.
The Take-Two CEO is talking about a recession, and it's here for video game companies, which I don't think is a recession at all. I guess it is a recession, but it's these are smart people, right? They know what's going on. I mean, they know that there's people able to do other things. But then he goes on to say that they are going to be back in business by 2023.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen unless we have another pandemic. And
which is what they're planning.
Oh, God.
Put your tinfoil hat on. Get ready. But yeah,
the cooties. All of a sudden, the cooties is a real thing.
It is the case of the cooties. But yeah, so it was just something I wanted to bring up because I was just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Stop being silly. You're gonna be okay. Your companies are not gonna close, and if anything, you might get people you might have fans who never knew they were video game fans before, who you have stuck around now. You'll probably get increased sales over the years. It's not gonna be like a steady,
Yeah, but then in the end, he's trying to placate.
Well, they all are, yeah.
They're trying to placate shareholders. That's really what it comes down to in the end.
Yeah, like I said, that they're playing the tiny violins
because they're going to see their revenues down so much, and the investors are going to say, "Well,
I can't afford my new $50 million yacht that has rocket power and Wi-Fi, whatever."
Or rocket powered Wi-Fi.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, I want to get this one in just because it's a completely silly story. Over on the Gamer, the MSN website, they talk about video games. They put out the 10 best NES games on Nintendo Switch Online. And I just wanted to get what your opinion is about this list, all right? So we're going to go through it super quick.
Hold on. Before we even get going, I think in a way this is mislabeled because the top 10 NES games on Nintendo Switch, last time I checked, the NES stands for Nintendo Entertainment System. The Switch is made by Nintendo, and it's an entertainment system. Should this article really be something that covers all of Nintendo? Okay, I'm done.
All right, number 10. I don't know if this is in any order, but here we go. Metroid. Star Tropics.
Not one many people played.
Kirby's Adventure. River City Ransom.
River City Ransom being on this list is awesome, though, by the way. I loved River City Ransom growing up.
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
Which is interesting because that's the one people don't like as much.
Yeah. Super Mario 2.
That is really Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah. But still. Punch-Out.
Fair.
Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
Legend of Zelda 1.
Okay.
And Super Mario Brothers 3. I gotta say, it's like, okay, so our top 10 best NES games on Nintendo Switch Online. Mario 2, Mario 3, Zelda 1, Zelda 2, and Metroid. Yeah, you just labeled the top 6 flagship games of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Like, that were released by Nintendo. And then Kirby's Adventure is,
that's Nintendo.
Right. But, so it's like, well, your article's not really, I don't know. But Star Tropics and River City Ransom being on this list, I'm actually pretty happy about. Punch-Out, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about whatever controversies or whatever. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is the one for me. Like, I don't want to fight, what was his name, Mr. Dream or whatever. I don't give a crap about Mr. Dream.
You know what?
Give me fighting Mike.
You know what games rated really terribly at the time, but I loved it. Actually, that's a really good top 10 games that are kind of terribly received by everybody, but that you happen to really like.
Top 10 underrated games.
Underrated. Hidden gems. How many times is that word thrown around? I get sick of hearing it. These are the hidden gems. No, it's not hidden anywhere. You can. You didn't find it under.
It's not hidden. It's right there.
I found it on the bookshelf over here. No, it's not hidden. But I loved the Guardian Legend.
Yeah.
And
Battle of Olympus.
I never really played that one.
So here's the thing. I didn't get to have Zelda 2 when I was a kid, but I did get to have Battle of Olympus. It pretty much used the exact same engine. But it was all Greek themed, And it was awesome. It was, the only thing that was weird for me was playing through it, and like, so you get to go to all the different like deity temples and everything, and I got to the temple of Hades, and I walked in and I was like, Jesus? Because the sprite looked like they used the Jesus sprite from like some other game and put it was like, okay, it just kept going. But that was an interesting game. You want to talk about a shadow fight? So here, okay, in Zelda 2, you fight Shadow Link at the very end, right?
Okay.
So the screen goes blue. You see, and everything's a black outline except for Link, and then you see Shadow Link, and you got to fight him. The final boss of Battle of Olympus, you're on a platform against a black sky. He is a shadow person. The only way you can fight is by looking at the water beneath you and fighting through the reflection. Because you both gave a reflection, so you both had shadows. So you're looking at the bottom half of the screen, being like, jump, hit,
That sounds really annoying. Just like
it was actually really cool. It was done really well. So,
okay.
Anyhow, that was just a nice little pleasant tidbit. My final story, because I had a ton of stories this week. Final story, I really wanted to bring this one up because I saw this. I was like, are you kidding me? That's awesome. And I'm hoping I pronounced the studio correctly. If I don't, tell me in the comments. Something help me out here. But Weta Workshop is developing a new Lord of the Rings game. Weta Workshop is the people who helped make the movies.
Really?
Yes, the visual effects house that helped make the movies are working on a game in the same deal. So
okay, but have they ever made a game before?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's doing it. It looks like they're partnering with Take-Two.
Okay.
So that might, or at least a subsidiary of Take-Two. So that's actually really cool. And like, obviously we're not going to see it anytime soon, but it's kind of exciting to know that it's coming, especially coming from the news that Lord of the Rings Gollum, which looked really dope, is getting pushed back to sometime next year.
Tons of games are being pushed back.
Yeah.
Tons and tons. This Christmas season, I don't think is going to be as exciting for gamers overall compared to other years.
We'll see. But the one thing I'm thinking about when you tell me you're pushing your game back is I'm totally supportive of that as long as your game A comes out and B is not hot garbage, is not a mess. It's not a chaotic mess, and they would have to wait for a bajillion patches to come through.
Well, that's fair.
And I had another story, but it's not that big a deal. So we're going to skip that one. But you had something else a quick topic you wanted to address. We were talking about it yesterday, and actually it revolves around what we just said about like games coming out first day one. So
yeah,
have at it.
So gaming is in a very different place nowadays compared to even 20 years ago. Because 20 years ago, even on PlayStation 2, if you bought a game, it was complete.
Yep.
Now, there were region differences. Like, for example, I hate to keep going back to Mario 64, but we're going to go back to Mario 64.
They had 121 stars.
There's a reason why speedrunners use the Japanese version of the game versus the American version of the game.
The text runs faster.
But there's also glitches in the Japanese one that were patched out for the American release.
Right. Actually, it's interesting because I like to play the SMZ3 ROM hack, which, if anybody doesn't know, they took some ROM hackers took Super Metroid and A Link to the Past and fused them, and you basically play both games at the same time. But the items that you collect are intermixed between the two worlds. And so, like, Samus can pick up a sword for Link, and Link can pick up super missiles, that kind of thing. But in order to play it, you have to have a version 1.0 Japanese copy of Link to the Past. And in that version, you can do some funky stuff. Like there's a speedrunning tactic called fake flippers that I learned how to do. I was so happy. Basically, if you jumped off the ledge at the right time into the water, but you like landed just as you're doing a screen transition, you are temporarily able to swim. So you're able to go places you're not supposed to go until you get the flippers, and you can get items out of logic, as they call it.
Wow.
So clearly that got fixed, that got patched over time. But
yeah, so it's not like patches haven't happened historically.
Right.
It typically, as a game has been put out in different regions, there is one notable exception to that that you may not know about, and that's Sonic Spinball. The intro music was patched by Sega before release, and they had actually printed like 10,000 copies of the game or something like that.
Ooh.
Because it was copyrighted material at the time. Another interesting thing is...
Interesting, I didn't know that.
Another interesting thing about Sonic Spinball is the frame rate on the American version, not very good.
Yeah, no.
It's not very good. But the European version patched it. It is a much better game for a PAL machine.
Cool, let's look at that.
Yeah, so, that's all to say. Patching is something that has happened over time, but typically in very limited circumstances.
Right.
But we live in a world where games are patched all the time now. And Microsoft was the one who really ushered this in with the release of the original Xbox, because it had the hard drive built in.
Right.
And when Xbox Live finally got up and kicking, that's when it happened. That's when companies started releasing games that would be later patched. Okay. And it's only snowballed from there. And my problem with the state of gaming and the state of all these patches and everything that happens is your most hardcore fans, the people who love your games the most and will pay full price day one for them, are getting the worst experience of anybody.
Yeah.
As the game goes along, these bugs are figured out and they get patched out, and then there's usually a super complete version sometime down the line.
Right.
And so people who jump in for, I don't know, $10, $20 a year or two from now, they get a complete version of the game. They get one that's bug-free.
Right.
But the people who are there day one, they have the worst experience.
I don't know if I told you this. I may have said it briefly on the podcast. Vampire Survivors. Game has been not fully released yet. It's still not even at 1.0. However, he's constantly bringing out patches and he's constantly adding new content. But he has stated, the developer has stated, that when the game is at full release, that's when the price changes. So I like that as a concept, because he's like, yeah, pay $3 now because you're going to sit there and, you're going to go through patches, you're going to go through the changes of the game before the final release, which, on Steam, I think it works better because the whole idea of early access is literally, hey, we're an indie house, we need beta testers, we'll give you a discount, buy the game. But I like the way he's doing it specifically because he's just like, yeah, you're not getting the complete game. You're going to be kind of like being part of my beta testers, so to speak. I'll give you this price for the game. And then when the game fully releases, you just get you get the full game. You get the full wonderful experience. I like that. I wish big houses, big AAA studios would do that,
Well, that's not the way AAA studios work nowadays.
It never is. But, I mean, but they're supposed to have QA testers, but then it's because it's funny, you say, you were mentioning Sonic Spinball earlier. Sonic Boom is one of the glitchiest messes. There's actually a bunch of YouTubers who have done series on the game on how glitchy it is. And I'm going to have to name drop here. The Game Grumps did it. They actually went through and they played it, and when they were going through the credits, and they said QA. It showed QA team, and a QA team. This game had a QA team, and they were kind of going off about it. They were actually contacted by one of the members of the QA team. And the guy said, yeah, no, we kept saying it was a buggy mess. They didn't care. They wanted the game pushed out. So that's something I think he's got to get contended with too. But overall, I do agree. I don't like the fact that like there are developers out there are publishers out there who are putting games out, rushing them out because they know they can patch it later. Like, but you're getting my full amount of money now. Why should I not get my full game now?
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for DLC, but
occasionally you get some really interesting glitches that are in the player's favor.
Right.
One of those being there was a cave in Destiny. I can't remember if it was Destiny 1 or Destiny 2.
Oh, it was Destiny 1. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And there was a cave that was dropping the best loot in the game, and it was a glitch.
Yep.
And
people just sat there. You knew which cave it was while it was live because you would go online, go to that spot, or go to that area of the game, and as you're trying to find the cave, you'd see about 50 other players just sitting outside the cave. You're like, that's the one.
I never played Destiny.
It was fun. Destiny 1 was great.
But if I had played it and I had gone to that spot, that would have reminded me of the notorious monster hunts in Final Fantasy too much, and I would have just been, I'm done, I'm out, and not doing it.
Well, no, but the thing was like your loot was your loot. That's why they did it.
Yeah.
The other thing...
Sorry, I still have PTSD of those. From those.
Leaping Lizzie.
I finally got leaping boots once.
Me too, and I never took them off.
Oh wait, I was there when you got leaping boots, wasn't I?
I think you were, because I was doing almost like real life cartwheels. But I got my leaping boots, and even when I went paladin, I kept my leaping boots on. I started as a thief, and I went paladin. I was like, the boots stay on, you know. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Borderlands 3, I think one of the DLCs had to get patched, or because the you could constantly go back to the area to fight the guys there, and they were always dropping legendaries, always, like the loot goblins were always dropping. It was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes it works in gamers' favor, but a lot of the times, no.
Right.
And
you know what? When we were kids, the cartridge came out, you were not getting a better version. That was it. And if there was a better version of that game, you had to go buy the game again. So,
well, you just find the Super Hyper Turbo Edition.
No, it's not Street Fighter. Super Championship Turbo Edition Alpha with a side of coffee.
I bought all those.
Yeah, I know you did. I have one other story, but I think I'm going to save it for next week because I think that's a topic I want to talk about in depth a little more. Is video game preservation. So
we talked about that a bit.
Let's talk about some more. Try to find some more stories surrounding video game preservation.
Tease for next week, I
guess. Yeah, we gotta have something, right? So back to our normal shortish schedule. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for all the support. Everybody, even though we don't have a ton of comments on YouTube, but we still get feedback from you guys, and we love that you guys love what we're doing. It's just great to hear. It's so encouraging.
Like, subscribe, comment. I promise you'll get responded to.
Yes. Like, subscribe, and comment. Please. Give me your... I still want your top 10s. I still want your top 10 JRPGs. You know? Like, we got one on there. Give us more. Give us other people's opinions. You know? Let's have some civil conversation. Civil discord, as they say.
Discord?
Yeah. It's called Civil Discord. It's a term. It's also an app. Anyways, that's pretty much us for today. Thank you guys so very much for watching. We do appreciate everything you do. If you do want to consider supporting us, we are still looking at other channels to put up the audio on. But for now, we're on YouTube. I'm still putting out stuff on YouTube. I still got my own channel. I'm getting very close to changing my name and on there, and I'll announce it when it happens.
You can find me at monster_punter on Twitter.
Yeah, we gotta get you some fun pictures to put up so that we can say, hey, this is this guy. You know who you're looking at. Don't look at the other guys. The other guys are not Monster Punter.
There's some weird dudes that are calling themselves Monster Punters on there.
Yeah, there's some weird dudes calling themselves Matt Finish, but here we are. So, anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate you. Hope you guys have yourselves a fantastic day.
Take care.
Later.